Welcome to the And She Looked Up podcast. Each week, we sit down with inspiring Canadian women who create for a living. We talk about their creative journeys and their best business tips, as well as the creative and business mindset issues all creative entrepreneurs struggle with. I'm your host, Melissa Hartfield, and after leaving a 20-year career in corporate retail, I've been happily self-employed for 12 years. I'm a graphic designer, an illustrator, and a multi-six-figure-a-year entrepreneur in the digital content space. This podcast is for the artists, the makers, and the creatives who want to find a way to make a living doing what they love. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the And She Looked Up podcast. As always, I'm your host, Melissa, and today my lovely semi-regular co-host, Heather Travis, is back with me. And for those of you who might be new to the podcast, Heather is an artist and a PR and communications professional. She does both, and she stops by to join me about once a month as a guest host to talk about the business side of creating, and that's why she's back again today. And also next week, because we are going to be doing a two-part episode or episodes on pricing. And I know we've done a lot of episodes on pricing in the past, but quite frankly, they are by far...
There can never be enough.
There can never be enough. Pricing is like, it is the thing we all struggle with. And the struggle never goes away because pricing is fluid and it changes based on changes in technology and on raw materials and on so many different factors. Pricing is just a giant thing of levers, and the levers are just constantly being pulled back and forth in different directions. So we are doing two episodes on pricing, and today they're related. I should just say that. And what we're going to be talking about is deciding on the pricing model that you want to go with for your business or your services. And I think this is a pricing episode that applies equally to both, whether you sell product or services. Mm-hmm. So today we are going to be talking about premium pricing, positioning yourself as a premium brand. And so to give you an idea of what a premium brand might be that you would be familiar with, you would be thinking of things like a Chanel or a Mercedes-Benz. And then next week, we're going to be talking about value-based pricing, or some people also call it like bargain pricing, or I like value-based pricing better. But to give you an example of those, that might be like your Target or your Old Navy. And next week, we're also going to be talking about how you can do a hybrid pricing model through the use of sub-brands, which is a really interesting thing to take a look at. And to give you an idea of that, a good example would be like The Gap. So The Gap is a very large company with multiple brands. The Gap brand is kind of their mid-range brand, but then they also have their value-based pricing brand, which would be Old Navy. And then they have a more upscale brand, which would be Banana Republic. So I wouldn't necessarily say Banana Republic is a premium brand, but it is a higher end brand than The Gap.
Yes. A white t-shirt costs more at Banana than it does at The Gap, which costs more than it does at Old Navy.
Even though it may very well be the same white t-shirt.
The same white t-shirt, yes.
Actually, I don't think it is. But that gives you an idea of how you can potentially have multiple brands and different pricing structures within each of those brands. So we're going to be talking about all of those today and next week. And so, today we're going to start with the premium pricing model. And so I'm going to throw this one back to Heather and ask her, what do you think of, Heather, when you think of a premium pricing model? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Premium pricing model, I mean, immediately, and it doesn't have to be a big, like, $1,000 price tag. It could be a premium gift card. So, you can go to the pharmacy and buy a $2 gift card, or you could buy a $7 gift card or a $15 gift card, maybe at a art market or artisan fair. And what makes that premium to me is quality of ingredients, the marketing around it, and also perhaps for me, premium means exclusivity. So there's less availability. There might be less of this particular item available, which means that it's worth more money because there's almost a scarcity model around it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I, particularly in art, but also even in services, funny enough, Melissa and I were just talking offline about some contractor woes I was having. And, finding a contractor right now is very tricky. There's a scarcity model. And so the good ones are charging even more because they're worth it, but also there's a scarcity model.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of opportunity, I think, to build as a premium brand, thinking through all of the ingredients that go into making that product, and time is one of them, but also the scarcity of the product and how readily available it is. Yeah.
Yes. I think it's funny. I think when it comes to determining whether you're going to be premium or value-based pricing is actually sort of the last item on the list. I think a lot of it comes down to branding.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, there's definitely other components. I think more from because I do so much work as a designer, I tend to see this more from a service based, but I kind of associate it with like a very white glove service. So, a very high touch, very one-on-one, high level of trust, almost like an experiential moment working with somebody who is, I guess, a premium designer. Or a great service to think of where you probably have seen this is wedding photography. Yeah, I think that is an area where you can have very high-end wedding photographers, and then you can have more value-based photographers. And let's be really clear before we get too into this, there is a place for all of these pricing models.
Yes.
Okay, so one pricing model is not better than the other. They're just different, and there's a place for each of them. So I don't want anyone to feel like their model is not good enough or anything like that. That's absolutely not the case.
And we can also change our mind too, right? Like your brand can evolve and your pricing model can evolve. It's just a matter of communicating that out to people.
Pricing is fluid.
Yes.
So when you're thinking of like a wedding photographer, you have a very high-end wedding photographer. You may have a value-based photographer, and then you have photographers who run the range in between those two. And you're going to have a very different experience with each of those photographers. And I'm not saying that one experience is better than the other, but they're going to be different. And yes, from a premium standpoint, I tend to think of it being very, what's the word? I want to, if I am paying you a lot of money, I want to feel so freaking special to you.
Yeah. Yes, I feel like, and funny enough, it's not only the, and I see it, so premium pricing I charge for my commissions. I also charge premium pricing for a number of the PR projects or social media strategy projects that I do with clients. But what they're getting for that premium is not only either the artistic talent or the PR brain, but you're also getting basically one-on-one. You feel like you are my only client. And that is a huge value add-on that the person gets that allows that service fee or item fee to be justified because they were listened to, acknowledged, engaged with, all of those things. Some clients don't want that.
No, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So it depends, and it depends on you as the service provider or product provider, whether I don't want to talk to people. Okay, great. Don't talk to people then and just have a price and, so it totally depends on the business model that you have or the way your business is evolving that you set that. But yes, I think to me you're getting more of my time in a premium for my premium pricing.
Yes, absolutely. I think if you want a great example of seeing premium pricing in play and you like reality TV, think of those like $1 million real estate shows, like like selling New York or selling, is that what they're called? Selling,
yeah,
the ones I'm talking about though.
Yep.
And so these are real estate agents. It's totally reality TV, but they're real estate agents that are selling extremely high-end properties. And the way that they have to go about that is because they are working with a completely different type of clientele who expects the very best. They expect to be catered to. They expect to be made to feel special. And if you watch a show like that, you do really get a little bit glimpse into the work that goes behind selling these types of homes, because it's very different than selling, a $400,000 condo in
Right.
in Vancouver, where the minute you put a sale sign up, there's a sold sign on it, right?
Yep.
Like, is very different. So I don't even know if you can get a $400,000 condo in Vancouver.
Closet, maybe. Closet.
So yes, that's kind of what you're thinking about. You also mentioned something else in there, really, that just twigged something for me, and that is premium pricing may also apply to ease and speed of delivery.
Yes.
So you just said something about how you may not want to talk to somebody. Like, sometimes we just want to hire somebody to get something done. I need this done really fast. I don't want to have a chit chat about it. Here's what I want. Go. And that person has to turn it around very quickly. And there's usually a premium price for that.
Yes.
And you may also have it in your own business. It might be rush pricing. So, you come to me and you want a graphic done, and my time frame may normally be 5 business days, but you need it tomorrow. So you're going to pay a higher price for that. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think part of that, in setting that like rush pricing or premium pricing, is really a matter. It's almost, gosh, it goes back to when you and I talked about boundaries. To me, your pricing and saying like rush pricing is an extra $100 a day or whatever, that's setting a boundary for your business and being very clear that you, as the owner, recognize the value in your time and effort and what it means to maybe put another project off for a day or two so that you can get this done for another client. And it's respecting that. I think it's making sure that you respect your time and energy, but also so that your client respects the time and energy.
Yes.
Because if they can just get a rush job from you anytime they want, that's all they're going to expect, and they're not going to expect to pay for it. And that's not helping your business.
Yes, it's so funny. When I was making my notes for this last night, that boundaries 100% popped into my head. Sometimes you're charging more because of the boundaries that are in place.
Exactly.
Or
because
sometimes you're charging
boundaries
less because of the boundaries in place. It's like, you don't get as much of me, so you pay a lot less. But you don't get access to me.
Exactly. Or you don't get, for instance, you don't get access to the original, right? The premium is the original. The print is the value priced.
Yes, the mass-produced print is worth less than the numbered print, and the numbered print is worth less than the original. So, yes, absolutely. It's still early in the morning for me. I am not. Anyway, so yes, there's pros and cons to each of these models, and you're really going to have to think them through before you decide which one you're going to implement. But we're going to talk a little bit about what those pros and cons are, and we're also going to be talking about how you can set yourself up to become a premium priced vendor or producer or maker. And if you are, I think before we have this conversation, we're going to assume that you have the nuts and bolts of pricing. You may not be implementing it, but you understand the nuts and bolts of pricing. And so if you are a maker or an artist or anything, I really hope before you make a decision about which way you're going to go, that you are already in a position where your pricing ensures that you're making a profit. Okay, because if you're not pricing your work so that you're making a profit, you need to go back a few steps first.
And I'll say a lesson I learned the hard way is I set my pricing totally forgetting about the fact that going to, for instance, an art fair and having a booth and setting up a table costs money for me to be there. So then that product instantly gets more expensive for me. But also going into galleries, if they're to sell it, they're going to take 30-40%. And if that was all of my profit margin, And so I needed to make sure that I rolled that 30% into my studio pricing so that if you buy it from me directly or from a gallery, it's the same price, right? Because galleries do not like it when you have pricing that's lower than what they charge. They'll kick you out faster than you can say hello. Um, but it means that I still don't sacrifice my profit or as much of my profit margin when I go into a gallery. And that was a lesson I learned the hard way.
Yeah, you always want to make sure that your pricing, this is going to be different if you're in services, but if you are creating product from your work, so particularly physical product that you are going to sell publicly, so whether it's a painting or whether it is a line of greeting cards or a line of necklaces or earrings, you want to make sure that when you're pricing for profit, you want to make sure that you are having a middle tier in there for wholesale. So if for any, and this works really well. I know a lot of artists who do original canvases and things like that are probably thinking, I don't have to price for wholesale because I don't do wholesale. I just, I make the painting, the client buys it. But if you sell in a gallery, the gallery is the wholesaler.
Yes.
So you do need to price for wholesale. You need to know that the amount that the gallery takes off the top still leaves you with a profit. And so there's lots of different pricing models out there. A very common one is 2 by 2 by 2. And it changes a little bit by industry, but basically that is, you take the cost of what it costs you to make the product, including your time, and including the packaging of the product, but not the shipping of the product.
Right. Yeah.
That is your base cost. Then you multiply that by 2, that's your wholesale cost, and then you multiply it by another 2, that's your retail cost. So that ensures that if at any point you have a middle person working to help you sell your product, or you're selling it to a bricks and mortar retail or another form of retail, you are still making a profit. If you're able to sell direct to consumer, you're going to make even more of a profit. But and I know a lot of people say, oh, I'll never sell at wholesale, but you never know. And you want to make sure that you are leaving room to make that happen, because selling at wholesale, if you're priced properly, can be very profitable and a great way to get your product in front of a lot more people.
I was just about to say that's a huge marketing opportunity. And you can't put a value on that, funny enough. And so, that I agree with you completely. Same thing with being in galleries. Yes, they take a chunk of change, but they do huge amounts of marketing. They have, rent or lease or whatever it is on their building. They have staff in there. Like, there's costs, right? And I think that's the thing to remember, is that everybody has costs, no matter where you are along the food chain. Everybody has costs that they need to fulfill. And so if you're the beginning of the food chain, you need to remember that even in getting all of their costs paid, you still have to get paid. That's the most important thing, because you could be in all the galleries in the world. If you're not making money, that doesn't bode well.
You're just painting for a hobby at that point. Yeah. Because you like to paint, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. Which is great,
but then you're paying for a hobby, honestly. Yeah.
So anyway, yes, we're assuming that you have some grasp of basic pricing models, and that you are implementing that, and you are making a profit at whatever you are doing at this point. So I think one of the reasons people get drawn to a premium pricing model is that very often it's a way to bring in more money with less work, if that makes sense. It sounds really, when you boil it down to that, it sounds really mercenary, doesn't it?
At the same time, I mean, there's so much work that goes into positioning yourself as premium. So even though, I could paint a painting, it could take me the same amount of time, and I could sell it for $600 or I could sell it for $1,600. And if I'm going to sell it for $1,600, there's so much more work that I'm doing. I'm making sure that my website has a really great shopping feature. I'm making sure that the website is smooth and the photos load quickly. I'm making, there's so many more things that go into that premium and it's more than just the sticker price tag. I think that's the thing that people need to remember, that you can't just slap a big price tag on it and say you're a premium brand, right? You have to do the branding exercise around marketing why this is premium, what you
Yeah.
get for that premium.
Yes, absolutely. I think too, and this goes into a mindset piece here, is that a lot of us, a lot of the people that listen to this show are women and
Mm-hmm.
creatives, and I think artists and creatives have a tendency to undervalue their work in the first place. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of us as women really try to please other people, and so we often go all we're doing ourselves a disservice because we're probably not charging enough. I can almost guarantee you're not charging enough, but we're
Mm-hmm.
also over delivering at the same time for what we are charging. And I
Yes.
think this is where you can really start to have an idea of whether premium pricing could be something that works for you. Because if you do feel like you are over delivering for what you're getting paid, then it's time to raise your prices.
Yeah. Like if there's anything that causes you to be at all resentful
Yes.
or feel feelings other than
Joy and happiness
joy
and
and happiness,
chinging in your bank account.
correct. If there's any feelings other than that, resentment, frustration, that should be an automatic. You are not getting paid what you feel you are owed.
Yes, very, very true. Listen to your gut. It will tell
That's
you.
the gut check. Yeah.
It will tell you. And this is where you might be able to take a look at your business. And we'll get into the hybrid model next week. But you might be able to look into your business and say, okay, you know what? I can offer this type of service where I do over deliver. And that's going to be my premium service. And I'm going to charge a lot more money for it starting tomorrow. But you know what? And I think this is another mindset thing too. We don't want to say no to anybody. We don't want to say no to income coming in, particularly if you're not charging enough. If you're not charging enough, you're probably saying yes to everybody because you need
Yep.
the money. And then for these people that, you know, maybe what you need to do is offer up a lower end service or a less customized service that you charge a much lower price point for, but people don't get as much personalization or one-on-one time with you. It costs a lot less, and it's a lot more cookie cutter, for lack of a better word.
Yep.
And that becomes your value-based service. So you're giving people an option to work with you either way, but you are getting paid properly for direct access to you and the premium customer service and client care that you offer at that level.
Correct. And
Yes.
and I do it with my services in my small business coaching. You know, I can coach you over the telephone and over Zoom and Instagram and all of those things. But if I'm driving and sitting in your office, that's a different price because my time is priced differently. In my home office, I just have to sit down and talk to you. If I'm coming to your office, I'm getting in my vehicle, I'm driving, there's costs on my vehicle, there's costs on my time. All of that gets factored into, but you're also getting a hands-on in-person experience. So it's more than just my external, my gas and my time. It's actually, that hands-on time, I will say, is more valuable than me talking to you over Skype.
Yes, and I'm hearing more and more lately about particularly service providers who are offering VIP days. And this is essentially where somebody can hire you for the day for like a brain dump, where they may fly across the country to come spend that day with you. And it's
Crazy.
essentially and these are very high-end, high-ticket products, right? So we're talking about $10,000 for the day type of thing. And so somebody might come in, and I remember listening to a podcast episode with somebody. She wanted to put on her first conference ever, but she didn't know anything about conference planning, event planning. So she hired somebody who was an expert in it, and asked if she could spend I think it was a weekend with her, just getting everything like one-on-one. And
Amazing.
She paid a very high premium price for that. But for somebody like her who was very busy, very much a go-getter, a type A type person who wanted to, it's a very specific type of client that you're going to be servicing. They don't want to waste time. They just want the information. They want it now. They want it one-on-one. They want to pick your brain, and they're willing to pay for it. And there is a market out there for those type of clients. So
for sure there is.
Again, think of the wedding photographer. This might be somebody who wants to have their wedding on a private island, and the guests are going to be flown in by private jet, and it's no expense spared. And they are going to expect, when they hire that wedding photographer, they're going to expect a team of photographers and videographers to show up. It's not just the one person, right? It's going to be a production crew, and they're going to be invisible, and they're going to be, it's going to be an extremely high touch service. And that photographer and his team are going to walk away, or she are going to walk away with a very fat check at the end of the day. Yeah. Likely in the six figures, right? And so, there's a market for those people. It is not a huge market, but it can be a very profitable market if you are very good at the whole white touch, white glove service. Yes. So,
yeah. And it could be, for me, one of the things that premium for me is my painting pricing. I've tried to position it as a little bit more than value based. I would say it's closer to premium than value. And I am in the process of raising all my rates again. But one of the things that I like to do, it's all of those additional personal add-ons. So you buy a painting from me, I will hand deliver it, and I will hang it in your home. That's a little bit of control on my part, in that I know it's being delivered safely and properly and hung at a proper height. But also, that takes a lot of pressure off of the client, and that's worth something. And that is rolled into the premium price of that product, is that delivery. And that, and so it's worth something. And people want to get value for their money, and it can be a high dollar value, but it's that you need to get high return on that dollar value.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, I think a lot of this comes down to one of the first keys when you're positioning yourself in the premium space is your branding. People who often pay for premium services, they do it for a number of different reasons, and you have to understand a bit of the psychology behind it. If you're going to position yourself in that market, it may be people who, like I said, don't have a lot of time. They're busy, but they have money, and they're willing to throw money at their problems. So I need to solve my problem. I'm going to throw some money at you, but I want it done quickly and well. And I don't want to have to correct you. I don't want to have to double check your work. I want it to be beautiful. Then you also have the people who are all about prestige. So there are people, labels are important to them. They like everybody to know that they're carrying a Chanel bag and that they drive a Mercedes Benz, right? And so they are the aesthetic vibe of what you're doing, of your branding, has to portray that you are prestigious for them if you're going after that market. And so this is where you're going to probably have to invest a little bit more money into your branding. You're probably not going to be able to buy a logo off Fiverr, right?
Exactly.
You're going to want to make sure that, your whole branding suite, not just your logo, because it's going to be everything. Your brand is, we've done an episode on this. Your brand is everything that you touch within your company. So it's going to be things like your packaging, right? If you sell products, your packaging has to be another level. You can't just put it in a
Rice Krispie box.
You might be offering free shipping, right? If you're pricing your product high enough, free shipping should be a no-brainer in there because it should be included in the price. You may not be able to get away with that in value pricing your product. You may have to charge for shipping. It's going to be things like yeah, as I said, beautiful packaging, gift packaging. Do you offer gift wrap services? Will you deliver the product to the gift recipient? Those kind of extra touches. Are you highly highly responsive to communication?
Yes, that's a big one.
Very big if you're going to do. And that is part of your branding. You have to be able to, it's like a concierge service almost.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like the client comes down to the desk and rings the bell and somebody shows up.
Exactly. And you're like, how high can I jump? How far can I go? And that, yes. And that to me, that is premium,
Yeah.
and it's all those little, honestly, sometimes they're intangibles, right? And when you mentioned custom gift wrap, I did that, funny enough. A friend purchased a painting of mine, and I noticed the shipping address was going to another friend. And so clearly this is a gift, right? But instead of sending it to the person and then having her send it to the other person. And so I reached out and said, I noticed, Melissa, that you're sending this to Heather. Would you like me to gift wrap this and add a little card? And I added it with no charge. I did not ask to get paid, but to me, that's the premium. You've already purchased one of my items. That's the taking it to the next level that makes this person say, wow, not only did I buy a painting from her, but she then offered to do XYZ, which made me, the gift giver, look like an even more awesome person. And I think too, that's one of the things, and Melissa, you touched on it when you said premium, it's the status. It's premium is pricing, but it's also the experience. It's the feeling that the person gets from you. It's the one-on-one. It's the taking it to the next level. It's that extra little thank you card. It's the extra perfect wrapping. It's the attention to detail. It's those intangible add-ons and that make that status valuable.
Yeah. And so this is where it can get into the back end of your business. So in order to provide this kind of service, the back end of your business has to have highly refined systems in place. And you have had to, oh my goodness, I can't spit that out. You need to carefully think out the customer journey is what I'm trying to say there. Before you start to put your systems in place. So you need to know, like, what is it going to be like? If somebody is contacting Heather to commission a painting, she needs to think through that whole journey. When they send that first email and say, hey, it's 25th wedding anniversary. I want to get something really special for my partner. And I'd really love to they love your work. I'd really love to commission a painting. What's the next step? Like Heather needs to know what that next step is. This is part of her system. Somebody approaches her. She needs to know, how she's going to respond and what the next steps are. It could be anything from having them fill out a form or a document where she asks some questions about the person that the painting is for, or a little bit about the journey of the couple, or who knows, right? There's, I'm talking about your business like I know what's going on with it.
But all of those things, that's exactly bang on. And what it is, and funny enough, you and I, we talked about it earlier, but it's those boundaries, setting up expectations. And so if somebody comes to me, hi, exactly. It's, hi, I'm interested in a mural. Great. Before I go too far down the road, my immediate statement is, that's wonderful. My minimum rate for a mural is $1,500. And that immediately changes the conversation to either I'm not interested, that's beyond my budget. Okay, great. Thanks so much. Enjoy your day. No time wasted, right? Or perfect, that fits within my budget. Let's continue the conversation. And then there are an email that gets sent out. Great, here's the next step in the process. We do this, I do this, you do this, I do this, and then we net out, because I think, and again, this is part of that intangible, but I want to give the smoothest, easiest experience. And if you can lay out all of those boundaries, expectations, and communicate that clearly at the beginning of the process, the value is much higher for the customer than winging it. It makes them very nervous, particularly when there's dollars involved. Or if they've never, I think for artists too, this is an interesting one. Like most people who've hired me for a mural have never, ever worked with a muralist ever before. So this
Well,
is
it's not
their
something you do every
very
day.
exactly. It's not something, and commissioning artwork
Yeah,
is not something people do every day. And so you need to make them feel and understand that the value is there and that you respect them, not belittle them, but say, here's the process, here's how this is going to work, so that
absolutely.
they're very clear on it. And there's no, I'm commissioning a painting and it's going to be $1,200 and I haven't heard from her and I don't know what's going on. If she has a note from me that says you'll get colors and then 4 days later you'll get this note and then 4 days later you'll get that, she knows she's waiting 4 days. And
Yeah,
it's a very clear expectation. So I think pricing, funny enough, premium or value based or a hybrid model, regardless of what you do, it's around setting the boundaries for your business, how that aligns to your brand, and then communicating it. That's the key.
yes. And so not only is it the one-on-one interaction with the client that you have to think about in the client journey, it's all the other small pieces that they're going to encounter. So it could be anything from which credit cards are you going to accept?
Hmm.
Because if you are working with clients who are going to be spending a lot of money with you,
Hmm.
they're probably not going to pay you through PayPal, but you probably should be accepting American Express.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whereas if you're a value-based brand, American Express might be one of the credit cards that you don't accept, maybe, but you
Yeah.
do offer PayPal. Right. So it's everything from, the type of credit card you accept, the type of paper that you're going to wrap your finished product in,
Hmm.
and right up to training your support staff.
Yep.
So people who help you out, if you have people who help you out, if you're a one-person shop, you need to think about that if you get to a point where you're hiring. So if you're hiring some help for the holidays, maybe to help you pack and ship orders,
Hmm.
that person has to be very familiar with what the finished product looks like before it goes out, right? You don't want, if you're a premium brand, you don't want to hire somebody for the holidays to help you pack and ship and have boxes go out that are ratty
Yeah,
looking or
exactly.
they
Look like
forgot.
my dog rabbit.
Yeah, exactly. You want to know that every parcel that goes out meets the standard that
Hmm.
you have for packaging.
Yeah,
So that's really important. It's not just about what you do, it's about all the people who touch your brand, what they do as well.
totally. Yes. And that could extend to, if you recommend, for instance, so if I sell prints and then I recommend a framer in Toronto, as an example, and that framer then drops the ball, that reflects back on me as part
Yes.
of that premium experience. I bought this amazing print. I paid a lot of money for it. She recommended this framer. I went to this framer and they were dicks. It doesn't stop with the framer was dicks. It goes all the way back to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to make sure that every single, whether it's subcontractors or people who you're referring work to, you need to make sure that that whole experience is premium. And if you can't guarantee it, so as an example, to continue that framer, if I can't guarantee that or any one framer is going to not drop the ball, I will then say I'm not responsible for framing, and you as the customer are responsible for framing, and then the ball's in their court. That might diminish some of the premium value, but at least I know I've protected myself from other people's shoddy work. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's really important, is to make sure that you're protecting the value of your brand first and foremost.
Yeah, it's really important when you are branding yourself as a premium service or product that you really do explain your brand story
Hmm.
to your clients and that they understand what they're getting. I mean, if every aspect of what you're putting together is handmade, they
Hmm.
need to know that. That's
Yeah.
and for a lot of people that is what they want when they spend a
Hmm.
lot of money. They want to be able to tell their friends that this was hand woven in, you know, some remote location
Exactly.
from hand dyed yarn from sheep that were in the backyard
That were
kind of thing.
massaged daily by the hands of young children.
um,
Yes.
we're exaggerating here, obviously, to make a point, um, but yes, you want to make sure that you can communicate that story. You want to, and A really interesting thing actually is a lot of premium brands are purely word of mouth.
Yes.
If there are a lot of premium brands out there who don't advertise at all and who you may not even be aware exist, particularly in this in the services arena, and all their marketing is purely word of mouth, and they may be just as selective about who they work with as the people who are hiring them. So that's also a really interesting thing to consider. But before we get to the end of the episode, let's talk about some of the pros and cons of being a premium priced brand. So, one of the biggest pros right off the bat is that you have a much higher earning potential,
Yes.
obviously, gross revenue wise. And if you plan your business out well, you can also have the ability to work less. And that's always nice. Make more money, work less hours. You're going to have a lower volume of clients or sales, but you are going to have a higher maintenance level on those clients and on those sales. So I guess the first part of that is a pro, but the second part is a con.
And I think one of the other, the other pros is that it allows you, particularly for me, I know in raising my prices, it's allowed me some artistic freedom to create other things with dollars. I sort of took that extra money instead of just covering my expenses, right? I now had an extra, say, $20 that I could experiment with, play with, right? And reinvesting in my business in a slightly more scary way, right? Because it's not like you're buying a new computer that that reinvestment in your business, what you do with your computer, et cetera, et cetera. If I'm trying a new art technique or using new supplies, or, for you, Melissa, if you're trying a new paper supplier, right? You could order a lot of paper and have it show up and be horrible, right? And then you have this paper that you've spent money on. And so sometimes in order to move the business forward, you have to take some of those financial hits, and having premium pricing allows you to then maybe redirect those funds, particularly as an artist and creative. Being locked in a box of like, you can't do that because you don't have the money is really no fun. And so to have the money to play and experiment is really, it helps your business grow and it validates you as an artist. And so if you can just even raise your prices a little bit to justify that extra dollar or two going into the fun money bank, like that's so cool, right?
Absolutely. And frankly, before you even have fun, wouldn't it just be nice to know that all your bills are taken care of at the end of every month, and that you have money to invest in your retirement, and to have a good extended health plan, and to provide for your kids' university education?
Yes. I can feed the dog the premium dog food he's grown accustomed to.
Yes, you can go to the grocery store without having to check the price of everything.
Exactly.
The majority of us, we do what we do because we love it. And we're not necessarily looking to be millionaires, although if you are, go for it.
Right? Yes.
But we just want to be comfortable. We want to be able to make decisions, financial decisions, without a ton of stress, and just know that there's enough every month. And that's where premium pricing, because just as women, we tend to not look out for ourselves that way as much as we should. And even if you have a spouse or a partner, life is funny and things can happen, and you just never know whether you're going to have that second income. So it's always nice to know that your business can pay all the bills, even if it doesn't need to.
Yes.
And of course, obviously, if you are on your own, then you are responsible for all the bills. There's nobody there who's going to be able to add a little to the kitty if it doesn't work out.
One thing I found, because my pricing I've raised my prices, I want to say rather significantly since I first started selling my original artwork. And, part of that was going from just a hobbyist and selling to friends and family to actually making it a business and having like what I'll call a brand behind it, right? There's a difference between those two. But even that, part of me, I had somebody say something about pricing and they were like, "Oh, that's a little expensive." And obviously it was not the reaction that I gave back out, but in my head I'm like, "Well, then you go ahead and do it. You try and paint what I paint, right?" And I think that's the thing that is empowering, is that you need to remember you're the only person, you know, other people can do doodles, but you, Melissa, are the only person who does Miss Doodle the way you do Miss Doodle. And so nobody else can go and do that. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And there's other artists who could be more talented, right? Like there's artists who are way more talented than I am, who command higher prices than I command. At the same time, to the general public, like, you go out and try and do what I'm doing. And so to me, that alone is worth some sort of premium. I think as artists, we tend to, like, the starving artist model is self put. Like, we put the starving model on ourselves. And I think we as artists have the opportunity to say, and that's why, with my mural pricing, I had so many uncomfortable conversations with people. And it was after we had great conversations. Whereas if I had just started the conversation right up front, which is now what I do, my minimum fee for murals is $1,500. Immediately, I have assessed the client, boop, and I haven't wasted any of my time. I don't feel like I have to justify my pricing any way in later in that conversation. And I think having that pricing right up front and setting a value for yourself as premium and recognizing that you are premium talent in whatever it is that you do, whatever service you create, offer, what you make, all of those things, if you do it and it's special, it should be premium. It could be a value priced premium, but it should be premium. Like, you should make your monthly bills. You should cover your expenses. And if you don't, as an artist, you need to rethink your pricing, because you're doing yourself a disfavor. Is that the right word?
Disservice,
Anyway,
I think you mean.
disservice. You're doing yourself a disservice, and you're doing other artists a disservice, because if other people, if they're like, "Oh, I can get this for $100." Really? Like, do you really want all the art in the world to only be cheap? I don't think so.
Yes. So, so funny. I had a conversation with my mom yesterday, and basically the entire conversation was me talking about my mental struggles with pricing my work. Because sometimes you just need to talk to your mom about these things.
Yep. Yep.
But this is one of the cons I get. I don't even know that it's a con, but maybe one of the things you really need to think carefully about premium pricing is that you need to be very comfortable with the fact that what you do and what you charge is not going to be for everyone. And you need to stop
Yes.
trying to please everyone, because
Yes.
not everyone is your ideal customer or your ideal client. And this can be so hard for so many of us. I struggle with this. And this is one of the things I was telling my mom on the phone yesterday. I raised my rates on one of my services that I offer a couple months ago. And the very first person who I sent my new rate card to, and oh my, just to be really clear, I struggled so hard with raising those rates. And I still don't think I'm charging enough, but it was a big leap for me at the time. And the very first response I got back was, "Wow, this is a lot of money for not doing very much work." And I was crushed.
Yeah.
I was crushed. I thought, oh my God, I've overstepped the mark. I've screwed up. I've charged too much. And I just felt awful. I had a little cry, and I talked to a couple of my business girlfriends and just showed them my pricing and what I was doing, and asked, like, please, honest feedback. Am I charging too much? And they had a look, and these are people I trust, and they came back and said, no, you're not charging too much. That is a very fair price. Okay, so first of all, if you hear the term very fair price, you're still probably not premium priced.
Yeah.
like that's something that the average person is going to look at and go, yeah, okay, I can understand that pricing. That makes sense to me. And so I walked away, and I hadn't responded to this person, and I had a good think about it. And then I thought, because one of the other things they said in their email was that, this is something they could do themselves. They just didn't have the time. And I thought to myself, well, this is what they're hiring me for. It's not to do this actual work. They're hiring me to get back their time. And
Yeah.
that's where the value is,
Yep.
right? So this is what you have to think of when you're premium pricing yourself, or any type of pricing, is where is the value proposition?
Yeah.
And that is how you position yourself. And so that is how I responded to this particular person. As I said, yes, as you mentioned, this is something you could do, but you don't have the time. And that is why people hire me. They hire me to get back their time. And there's a lot of value in that. And it's more than just the work that I'm doing. It's what they're getting back in return in terms of their time, where they can spend that time and make more money elsewhere, or, whatever. And so that's how I mapped it out. And that's how I position myself now with this particular service. And, so far, that first person is the only person who has said no. So,
and I think that's the thing, is that there will always be people, no matter, you could be the most value-based of value-based, there will be somebody who says that's too much money and
absolutely
wants a discount.
Yeah.
Full stop. Right?
And you need to be very careful with those people, because the people who tend to come and bring money into it, like the people who say right off the bat, that's too much money for what you're doing. Those are the red flag people. So even if you were able to negotiate or explain to them why you charge that money, they're probably not people you want as clients, because that's what it's about for them.
I'll tell you, and that's so bang on, every conversation. So I'd say 90% of my commissions end up coming through Instagram, and I will have a DM from somebody. And if of those DMs, if the very first DM includes a question on pricing, so, hi, Heather, I love your work. I'm interested in having a commission, wondering what the price would be on a X size by X size. The moment pricing is in the first DM, I know that we're going to have uncomfortable conversations around pricing, and there's a 50-50 chance that this commission will fall through, versus people who come in saying, hi, Heather, I love your work. I'd love to talk to you about a commission. Do you have a few minutes, or whatever? And the moment we get on a call, they say, I was on your website. I love all your things. If you've been on my website, you see my pricing, and so you can kind of guesstimate what a commission is going to cost you, right? And those are the clients that I want. Those are the people who come in saying, I love your work and I want a commission. And their immediate next question isn't, and what's it going to cost me? Right? And I know that I'm going to lose a chunk of those people, and I'm comfortable with that now. It used to really disappoint me. I used to try
of course.
I used to think that
happy.
Exactly. Like, I literally thought, if I have a commission come in, it's my loss, and actually it's not my loss. It's actually their loss. And I think that's the other empowering thing, is saying no to certain projects, or respecting your pricing boundaries enough to say no, is actually very empowering and reflective of the value that you yourself place on your time and your art or your creation or your service. And you didn't need those people anyway. It's making room for the people who are going to respect your pricing and your time and the value that you offer. So don't cry over spilt milk. They're not worth it.
Absolutely.
Easier said than done.
It is so easier said than done. And I'm actually going to throw out an Instagram account for all of you who are makers or even service providers. But this is more geared towards makers, because a lot of the comments come from Etsy conversations. It is small biz, B-I-Z, memes, M-E-M-E-Z. It is an absolutely hilarious Instagram account. And basically, if you're a maker and you have like a crazy conversation with somebody, with a potential customer in DMs, you can send screen caps, and they'll of course, anonymize it.
Yes.
Anonymize. Anyway, so the actual client or customer in question will not be identified. You might be as the vendor, but it is hilarious. Right. And if you think that you have had some doozies of a client, then this is going to make you feel so much better.
So much better.
I can't tell you how many times they post quite frequently, and they're always good for a laugh, at least once a day, where you just read some of the things that potential clients have said to artists and makers, and you just think, wow, okay, I have a pretty good group of clients.
Exactly. That's when and I hate saying like at least is one of my least favorite sort of sentences in the English language, at least. But I like to look at those things and go, well, at least that's not the experience I had. At least they're not my client. And that's a very refreshing thing to recognize. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yes, absolutely. So I think the cons of this kind of pricing model, as we mentioned, are that you have to be prepared to be much more hands-on, and that you are not going to be for everyone. And you are really going to have to dive in and know who you are for. And be comfortable with the fact that a lot of people are going to say no to you, and that you're probably going to have to say no to a lot of people. So I think those are a few of the cons, but I do think that there is room, and we'll get into this next week, but I do really believe that there's room for both pricing models in most businesses.
Agree.
I think there are some businesses where if you're prestige, you are prestige, and that's that. And if you're value-based, you're value-based, and that's that. But I do think that for most artists, makers, creatives, there is room for both models in your business, but you just need to have a good think about which model is going to appeal to which person and how you're going to market to them. So
and then just owning it, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
that. I think that's the hardest part about pricing models, is owning it and standing by it and not offering a discount and not,
we didn't even talk about discounting, but yes, premium models do not discount, or very rarely discount.
No, and I would say as a general rule of thumb, if it's not a discount, it's value add. So I'm not offering a discount, but I will complimentary come to your house and deliver this and hang it.
Yes,
as
you
my
get an extra something or other, or you get,
and so it's value add, and so it's not the free thing. And I think, even funny enough, it's a language my husband and I have used a lot at our retail store, is there's nothing that's free, it's complimentary. So this is a complimentary, it's with my compliments, and it's not saying it's free, because that devalues the thing.
That's so funny. I couldn't remember who said that, because we've talked about this before, but when I was doing my box Christmas card marketing, I'm giving everybody who orders before the end of the month, they get a complimentary set of gift tags. And I was about to write for you, and I was in doing the marketing graphics for it, and I was like, no, who was it I had the conversation with? It's not free, it's complimentary.
It's not free, it's complimentary.
And then I had to look up how to spell complimentary.
I know. Oh my gosh, exactly. The complimentary. But that is a big one. It's, to me, premium means there's no discounts given. It's value add.
Yeah.
So how can I add value to this to make it an even more premium experience?
Yes.
And that might mean giving away things, quote, for free, but you never frame it as free. It's always complimentary. It's my compliments to you.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that is it for this week, and we are going to be back next week, where we're going to talk about the flip side of premium marketing. We're going to be talking about value-based marketing, and we're also going to get into the hybrid pricing model as well. So I hope you all were able to take something away from this week's episode, and we'll be back next week with the flip side. So until then, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. If you're looking for links or resources mentioned in this episode, you can find detailed show notes on our website at andshелookedup.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter for more business tips, profiles of inspiring Canadian creative women, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. We always love to hear from you, so we'd love it if you'd leave us a review through iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a note via our website at andshелookedup.com, or come say hi on Instagram at andshелookedup. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.